Are we alone in the universe? Is there a portal through time? Can a person really come back from the dead? These are just some of the questions that continue to baffle and bewilder us. Although many have tried to answer them, not one definite conclusion has been given. This program will tackle all that is unexpected, unexplainable, and unorthodox. Is it destiny's sleight of hand? Or is it a nudge from God? Or maybe it's simply a matter of science.
Biglang tumahimik yung paligid ko. Tapos nakita ko yung sarili ko na malaki yung ulo, tapos dugo.
Nakita ko yung sarili ko, nayakap-yakap ng nanay ko at nakikita ko lahat ng nangyayari sa kapaligiran na nagkakagulo sila.
Sabi niya, Dok, punta ako sa langit eh. Sino nakita mo doon? Si Mama Mary, tsaka yung 7 angel.
Death, as we all know, is inevitable. But for a person to actually cross over and come back to life, that's another story. This is the case of David Calo, a boy who his mother says died for 45 minutes. But for some strange or perhaps miraculous reason, the boy came back to life. Ruby Calo came from a well-off family, a businesswoman, and a mother to 5 children.
We had a good life. The kids were studying in the best possible schools, private schools. I was a pioneering domestic ticketing agent online, because before that, everything was manual.
David was Ruby's eldest son and third among her children. Just like any other kid, he enjoyed physical activities and was full of zest.
He was really A1 in basketball. At 7 years old, he was placed in the 10 to 14 age bracket. That's how good he was, and he still won awards.
Masigasig siya, very active. He is actually a very sports-minded kid. Kasi he plays soccer and he wants to learn basketball, and he just kept running around. He was full of energy.
He came after a long interval of years, and so it was a totally new experience, and I actually enjoyed having him around. I found him very cute.
The Calo family was enjoying a comfortable life. Yet fate made a wrong turn for Ruby and her son David. Business began to wither, and trials came one after another.
We really had to be hands-on. I had my mother at the time who also helped us. She passed away 2 months after I closed the business, so sunod-sunod yun.
2 years back, life was really different from today. Like, sometimes we didn't know where we would get the money for our next meal. Sometimes we didn't know what tomorrow would be like.
What Ruby didn't know was they were yet to face the biggest trial of their lives.
May 1, 2006, first day nila sa isang summer activity. Pag-uwi ng mga bata, lahat sila may lagnat. They still tried to go the next day kasi nga it seemed like sometimes children have that, yung sinat lang na siguro may tooth growing. Pero the next day talaga nanghihina na sila, so they missed that whole 1-week activity. Then the next week, meron ng basketball summer camp. Wala na ring lagnat si David, so he attended that the following week. Tapos nanghihina siya, mukhang bumabalik yung lagnat niya.
When we return, the dengue virus slithers its way through David's body, and with it, death slowly creeps in. Being sick with fever is something we usually shrug off. Our antidote for this type of ailment? Take an aspirin and stay in bed. And that's exactly how David's parents reacted when he fell ill, until his temperature shot up and he started vomiting blood.
On May 1, 2006, things were about to change for David. After returning home from a basketball camp, a feeling of discomfort and uneasiness almost knocked him off.
I felt a little parang that's sick at the afternoon or morning. I felt cold because my pain started to just keep on rising and rising.
all of us had fever. My husband was thinking it's just like a flu, just like what we had a week before.
At first, David thought he could handle himself despite his illness, so he continued his daily routines. But on the 5th day, the fever went up. He became weak, frail, and showed no signs of improvement. In just a matter of days, the Calo family had to confront a major dilemma.
David had a second bout of fever, but this time the fever was really shooting very high. It's like 42. It was not just feverish, it was burning. And although my husband had cash from his work, again, he was hoping it was just flu and he was holding on to it.
As a young boy's life hung in the balance, a series of events will later prove significant to his survival. And it will also trigger a number of questions in the minds of those in the medical field. Was David really a victim of dengue? Or was it a case of misdiagnosis?
David? My stomach started to hurt because my blood was floating out, especially when it was black blood. The pain rised.
There was that one night when he vomited out fresh blood. In my estimate, it was like 200 cc. And I really asked my husband, begged him, this is not just fever, he's hemorrhaging inside. This could be dengue.
David was constantly vomiting blood. Alarmed and worried, Ruby was almost unsure of what to do. Until a close family friend who refuses to be identified offered to bring them to the hospital and take care of the bills.
We arrived in the hospital. I still remember the time, 9:57 p.m., just before 10 p.m.
Time stood still as Ruby waited for the initial findings on their son David. At around 11 p.m. on May 16, 2006, David was purportedly diagnosed with dengue hemorrhagic fever stage 3.
I felt a little conscious that something might happen. So I was trying to, I'm like losing hope in my life and my efforts.
No, please no. David!
Dengue hemorrhagic fever, or DHL, is a blood infection disease that is transmitted by the bite of the Aedes mosquito infected with any of the 4 dengue virus. Symptoms usually occur 3 to 5 days after the infective bite that includes high fever, severe headache, muscle and joint pain, pain behind the eyes, bleeding, and a rash. David manifested all of these symptoms. People who have died of dengue is not an extraordinary story, but David losing his life and coming back from the dead is one tale to tell. On that harrowing day of May 18, 2006, was there really divine intervention? A medical anomaly perhaps? Or just a glitch in the little boy's fragile system? Dr. Emilia Baleva, an infectious disease specialist, agreed to look at David's 2-year-old medical records. She is skeptical about the reports that our team showed to her.
Critical time for you to be seen if you have dengue is 1 week after the initial onset of the bite, no? So when you're still continuously doing your stuff, you're working, you're doing your camping, yung platelet mo is continuously being destroyed already.
Based on the medical records of David, if indeed dengue was the real cause of his condition, then how come he was able to endure 17 days of having the virus in his system?
O pag dengue patient, 1 week lang, tapos na tayo. Isipin, nare-reach mo na yon. Either the patient recovers after 1 week or the patient goes negative. But in this case, 17 days na it's been going on. So I'm not really convinced it's just really dengue.
Normally, a healthy individual has 5,000 to 10,000 white blood cells and 12,000 to 14,000 red blood cells in the body. Problems usually occur like infections and other related diseases when the numbers of white and red blood cells decrease or increase profusely. For dengue cases, the number of red blood cells decreases as the virus progresses. But David's medical records illustrate it differently. Dr. Baleva implies that another disease might have caused David's unexplainable condition.
If you check the records, meron na rin siyang fluid sa lungs. Okay, meaning pleural effusion. That could also be a complication also of the pneumonia. So eventually, hindi na-treat yung pneumonia niya, nagkaroon na ng sepsis. Or yun nga sabi natin, the bacteria has infected even the blood and parang parts of the body from the brain down to the feet. So generalized infection na nangyayari.
So it could be a bacteria and not a virus.
Pneumonia, sepsis, dengue fever, or a miracle in the offing. At this point, everything remains a mystery. But who knows? This might be a miracle waiting to be told.
Considering all the complications like seizure and near arrest and bleeding episodes, it could have been a miracle that the patient really survived, or maybe the immune system of the patient was really able to fight the infection.
In the summer of 2006, Ruby Calo watched her son die with her very own eyes. We sought the help of other medical experts to help us understand what David's body may have been going through during those critical moments. And they seem to contradict the eyewitness reports of his mother.
No, please, Lord.
Death of a child.
Don't take away my son from me, Lord.
It's truly hard for any parent to digest, even imagine this, for it is not the natural order of life, as parents would normally go first before their children.
First of all, when I saw him dead, it was the most frightening moment of my life. There was fright. For a child to die in front of the parent, I would say that is the most frightening experience of any parent.
David, you promised me.
Ruby refuses to believe her child is dead. She couldn't accept that it was David's time to go.
Seeing that whatever I do with the people will not make any difference, but what I will do with God will make a difference. I dashed on the floor, face down, and I raised my arms and I said, I am going to storm the gates of heaven, Lord.
45 minutes later, David was able to breathe again.
David.
I don't think anybody can survive what David survived. If there were a dengue 5, he must have reached a dengue 5. Many die at dengue 3. They say only 10% survive dengue 4.
Medical experts say that the human body can perform miracles. In extreme cases, it can go beyond its limits whenever the need for survival arises. But how long could David hang on for dear life? Did David's heart really stop beating?
I saw my son dead. Frigid white.
In 2006, the hospital where David was admitted did not have the state-of-the-art technology.
Siyempre, alam mo naman ng government, sobrang daming pasyente dyan. So, hindi minsan yung facilities nila not enough to handle all the patients that would be needing those kinds of facilities.
When the doctor and the medical attendants were trying to revive the 6-year-old boy, Ruby claims that nothing was attached to her son, except for the ambu bag that provided artificial ventilation to David's lifeless body. Medical experts had more room for doubts. Dr. Roland de los Reyes, a cardiologist in St. Luke's Medical Center, explains what happens when the heart stops beating.
Cardiorespiratory arrest. No? This is a situation wherein the patient's heart stops pumping and the patient's respiration stops. No? Vital signs are zero. No blood pressure, no heart rate, and no respiratory rate.
There wasn't any sign of life at all, but they kept on pumping. While they were doing their part, I continued to pray at least 15 to 20 minutes.
Ruby was sure that more than 20 minutes had passed, but her son remained still, not breathing, lifeless as a withered leaf. Experts, however, say that it is impossible. Dr. De Los Reyes also reviewed David's medical records. He has another opinion on David's ordeal.
I think this patient did not actually suffered a cardiorespiratory arrest. No? They noticed na nahirapan siyang huminga. The doctors at the General Hospital instituted measures to stabilize his vital signs.
Ano na? Dok, hindi ko ma-detect yung BP.
Or if ever na he really had a cardiac arrest, no? Probably na overestimate lang nung relatives yung duration. He may have lost track of the time, no? Na kaya sabi niya 45 minutes.
I have a sense of time because as I told you, I am a musician. I know when a minute passes without having to look at my watch.
Precious minutes flew fast. Still, her son lay motionless. Other people would have given up, but not Ruby.
No, please. Do everything, please, no.
Inutusan na yung nurse aide to get the green blanket, which I found out was called postmortem blanket.
Siguro ang ibig nila sabihin, yan yung, pag sinabi ko yung postmortem, parang namatay na, tapos yung gagawin mong pagsusuri doon, postmortem analysis or postmortem discussion or yung mga procedures na gagawin mo pa in the future, doon sa pasyente, no? So siguro yung iba kasi na-perceive nila, kasi syempre pag namatay yan, binabalot yan definitely. Sa ibang hospital, white blanket, I don't know with other hospitals, no? So probably that's what they term as postmortem blanket.
I kept my arms raised, my hands up, and I said, "Thank you, Lord, for bringing David back." As soon as I said it, parang may machine na humila sa torso ni David.
Five days later after the ordeal, David was back to full life.
So I did not have that fullness of joy until I saw him back to life. And then I could really say that was it's an understatement to say it's the happiest moment of my life.
My pain started to just keep on rising and rising until I died when I didn't feel the pain anymore.
Three years ago, at the age of 6, David died. As he saw his lifeless body laying on the hospital bed, something was lifting him up.
I left my body and then when I went to space, I saw space. Then look around the place where I'm going to. Like the stars, the planets. I got to see the other planets and I also saw astronauts and the moon.
To this day, David remains consistent on his accounts of the afterlife. His memory of leaving his earthly body is vividly expressed in his drawings.
That was 1.5 years ago, right?
In November 2007, Ruby and David were invited to tell their story in Jessica Soho's Hot Seat.
You died. And then, did you know that you died? Right in that hospital?
Yes, because I saw my body.
You saw your body.
When my spirit was flying to heaven. Like it's like a flight to heaven, but actually I'm just like going to heaven.
Dr. Ali Gee, a licensed child psychologist and a Christian counselor, says that the human brain has an overwhelming power.
Things like this do happen when the machine pronounced that we are clinically dead. The mind still work for a few seconds. So these are the things na akala din natin can lead us to believe that we actually left our body and then, traveled somewhere.
When I reached the gates, there were 2 angels guarding in the two sides of the place, left and right. It's female and man. Yeah, the gates opened by itself, and then I entered, and I'm not the only person there. I saw other people which died, passed on. I saw regular horses, and also saw horses on fire. I saw people playing harps. They're just roaming around. Usually they're in their rooms, but everybody's happy.
In most testimonies of people who have claimed to have died and have come back to life, visions of angels, horses, and Jesus are common. Is this what we expect to see when we die?
Actually, when a person experiences the NDE, which we call the near-death experience, maraming emotions dadating yan sa kanya. Feeling of coldness, the smell, the light, the tunnel, all of these are possible. Especially to a child na naturuan at pinaalam natin tungkol sa heaven, sa hell, angels, and Jesus Christ.
Of course, Jesus was there. Jesus throne in the middle of a garden. There's a tree that is a tree of life. And then there's a river around the garden. Jesus, his nose have a Hebrew, long hair, and he's handsome. We talked and we hold hands. Jesus didn't stand up to walk to me. He's really waiting for me. So he knows everything pala. He knows everything. He doesn't, hey, bakit ka dito parang bigla? He's actually really know. He knows our future.
David's testimonies were not unbelievable to Father Joseph Chiari, a Jesuit priest and a close family friend of the Kalos.
For me, the details did not probably matter that much of the experience itself, because I had a similar experience like that. I had it when I was 14 years old. David had it when he was only 6.
Father Chiari and Ruby are convinced that David's spirit went someplace while he was dead. While some skeptics may argue that perhaps the medications administered to David could have caused hallucinations, Dr. Sunny Matias Habacom, a pharmacologist, cannot confirm this possibility.
From what I read, he mentioned of this seemingly hallucinations after he recovered. I think this is part of the story relayed to you by the parents, as this was a material given to me by you. And so, wala akong nakita, no drugs there could cause the hallucination.
But for Dr. De Los Reyes, David's recollection of his afterlife experience is 1 in a million.
Yeah, honestly speaking, in my practice, yung patient, walang recollection what happened eh. Parang nagkaroon lang sila ng amnesia. But again, there are stories na meron silang nakita or narinig or what. Those things are really hard to verify.
Ikaw ba yan?
If nothing else, David came back with a better understanding of his faith, his mission, and his dreams.
The new us will be better, will be different from the earth now, because it can't be a new earth with the same corruptment of the people that we stop murderers, robbers, and it's a new earth. So God will have to sweep all the bad guys, all the bad. So it'll be starting to repent now.
When I started hearing the stories of David, the complex things of the Bible became simple for me to understand. That's why I believe his story.
I was fascinated, and I would listen to him attentively, watch at his eyes when he was sharing about his experience. And he would close his eyes, and I could sense that he was trying to get in touch with the divine. And his stories kind of resonated with my story. I felt that I was with him, I could understand him. He was talking on a spiritual level.
Two years ago, David Calo narrowly escaped the claws of death.
There may be conflicting opinions on what actually happened to this young survivor, but everyone agrees that the experience not only revived David physically, but also initiated his rebirth spiritually.
Unexplainable but certainly heartwarming. That is how Jojo Lastimosa, a close friend of David's father, views this story.
Well, I just hope that David is doing well. I hope that he is taken care of, and I do hope that he could really get a good future, because David is such a talented kid. I think he's very, very smart.
David and family have encountered a lot of obstacles, but somehow they always find a helping hand. Vicky Flores was a stranger to the family until David was brought to the hospital. She offered her home willingly to the Kalos so that they would have a place to stay after David was discharged.
I wish them all the best. And they know for a fact that they can always come here. They're always welcome. In fact, sometimes they'll come unexpectedly, and I always welcome them. Kasi naging partner rin sila ng family ko.
The most precious treasure that the family has now is being together, and the promise of a better future for David. The question remains, did he really die and come back to life? At some point, science was able to make sense out of this experience. But science also couldn't put all the pieces together.
It's really true that the patient underwent 45 minutes of CPR and then survived and lived without any deficit. Then it could be a miracle, no?
Though we are scientists in our own rights, I personally still adhere to somebody else, that is God.
It confirmed to me that the things that are more real are the things that are unseen. Faith is believing in things that you do not see. And that was a very clear example where faith is what brought David back to life. It seemed like a series of mistakes when every second counted. But if you look, now I look back, nothing was a mistake.
There are many sides to a story, and people have their own versions of reality. When something remarkable happens, people's interpretations will always vary. Because in the grand scheme of things, chances are, anything is possible.